Hi again, Mark here from Talkingbass. This week sees the release of the Talkingbass Scales for Bass Guitar app. I'm going to give you a run through of how it works, how to use it, and give you some examples of it in action. This week's release is for iPhone, but there will be an Android and tablet version coming out very soon. So I'll just give you a quick example of how the app works and then work through each of the settings and features in turn. As an example, let's select a basic 1 octave G major scale with a root note on the E string. Now you can see the scale presented there on the fretboard. Then if I want to hear that scale played, I've got the tempo set to 120 beats per minute playing quarter notes, and I can just hit the play button. If I want to play along to the scale, the click is there, so you can just use that as a count-in. As well as playing the scale, I can also bring up some scale information. I can also set the app to display standard notation and tab, along with the left-hand fingering indication. There are also a variety of other menus that I'll cover in a second. But let's say that I want to try something totally different, like an F Lydian dominant scale, showing the complete position with an A string root note fretted with the first finger. When we do that, we get the following. And if I play that scale, so that's the basic idea behind the player aspect of the app, but there's much more to look at in here, so let's work through the main features. Okay, so here we have the main screen where all of the action takes place. We currently have a simple C major scale loaded in a basic common 1 octave fingering, and the view is set to the fretboard diagram that you see there. The current scale is listed there at the top of the screen. In this fretboard view, we can choose to display the notes by pitch name, intervals, or fingering. The intervals refer to the standard scale degree notation of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the basic major and perfect intervals, with flats used for minor or diminished intervals and sharps for augmented intervals. So if we were to select a natural minor scale, you'd see the flat 3 for the minor third, flat 6 for the minor sixth, and flat 7 for the minor 7. Then for the fingering, we see numbers referring to each left-hand finger, so 1 is index, 2 is middle, 3 is ring, and 4 is pinky. So that's the fretboard layout, but we can also switch to the tab view by hitting the tab button in the lower right-hand corner, which displays both standard notation and tab. As you can see there, we're in bass clef with the scale in quarter notes as set within the tempo selection. The numbers that you see between the two staffs are the left-hand fingerings. When we play the scale in this view, the music scrolls along with the scale notes. Now, if you look to the top right-hand corner, you'll see the scale info button. Click there to find out a little bit more about the scale that you've selected. The alternative names are listed, you get the intervallic construction, the tonic, triad, and 7th chord, which is useful when learning how to apply the scale. Then we have some written information about the usage of the scale. This all combines to give you a little bit more depth to the app. It's not just a simple scale player, you can learn a little in terms of the theory too. Next, if you look down to the bottom left corner, you'll see the play graphic. Just hit that to hear the scale being played. To set the tempo, just hit the BPM number that you see beside it, and there you can specify either quarter notes or eighth notes with a tempo range from 40 to 180 BPM, moving up and down in increments of 5 beats per minute. So if we now hear that C major scale played in eighth notes at a faster tempo, it sounds like this. So now let's get into the real heart of the app, the scale selection menu. This is at the bottom center of the screen, and when you click there, you'll see a menu with 4 main selection areas. First, we can choose the scale. So this can be one of 36 different scale types. We have the major scale, all 3 minor scales, or the major and minor modes, the diminished scales, pentatonic scales, the whole tone scale, and a bunch of different exotic and synthetic scales. Then we have the root note selection, so obviously C for the C major scale. Then we move down to shape. Now this is where things get a little more interesting. So there are 3 main shapes to choose from: basic shapes, fingering positions, and complete positions. Each one of these will provide a different set of options in the select drop down below. Basic shapes are just simple one-octave common fingerings. So if you're new to scales and just want a quick reference to work from, this is probably the way to go. When you select basic shapes, you can then choose either E string or A string from the select options below. This indicates whether the starting root note is taking place on the E string or the A string. So if we select an A flat blues scale, basic shape starting on the E string, we get the following pattern starting on the 4th fret. If we choose the same scale but starting on the A string, we get this scale pattern starting at the 11th fret. At this point, it's also worth mentioning that we have a quick select option for the root note. This is to the right of the scale select button, and by clicking there, you can instantly switch to any root note required using the same rules set within the scale select menu. So I could switch to D blues, E blues, G blues, any root note that I require really quickly with that option. Now, as well as basic shapes, we also have fingering positions. Now, this is very similar to basic shapes in that, again, it's only a simple one-octave fingering, but this time you can select from 3 shapes based on the starting finger. For most scales, this will be the 1st, 2nd, or 4th finger with the root note on the E or A string. So as a quick indication as to how these 3 fingerings work, let's look at a simple C major scale, and we'll start it here at the 8th fret of the E string to give us a little room to maneuver. The most common fingering is the one that you'll all know starting with the 2nd finger. Okay, so we've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, all starting there at the 8th fret. But we can also play that same scale starting with the 1st finger, which will give us a slightly different pattern across the strings. So if we play up from that same 8th fret there at the E string, we have C, D, and then we can play the E here at the 12th fret of the E string. So C, D, E, so we've kind of moved up a hand position. Then we have F, G, A, so 8th fret, 10th fret, 12th fret, and then we have B, C, so that's 9th fret, 10th fret. So that's a completely different fingering position, but it's at the exact same notes. So 2nd finger, 1st finger. We can then try the same system starting from the 4th finger. So if we take that C there, 8th fret of the E string again, I'm starting with the 4th finger so the whole hand's move down the neck. We have C, and then we can move to the D at the 5th fret of the A string, then E, 7th fret, F at the 8th fret. So then we're up to the G, A, and B, so 5th, 7th, and 9th frets on the D string. And then the C is there at the 5th fret of the G string. Okay, so we've got a completely different fingering position again. Exactly the same notes, exactly the same pitches, starting at the same fret, but we're in a slightly lower position. So 4th finger, 2nd finger, and 1st finger. So those 3 fingerings allow you to start branching out a little from those single one-octave patterns that you'll probably be familiar with. The app allows you to see those fingerings for any of the listed scales with the root note on the E or the A string. So if we look at the C major scale that we just covered, we can select C major, fingering positions, and then 2nd finger E string, or 1st finger E string, and 4th finger E string. If we take something different like the D Mixolydian scale, we could try out all of those different fingering positions again. So we might try 1st finger A string, or 2nd finger A string, or 4th finger A string. Bear in mind that when you select the A string 4th finger positions, you'll only be able to go up as high as the 7th in that scale, because to move up to the octave would be in the next position up. So if we take that D Mixolydian scale, we'd have D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, and that's as high as we can go in that position. To move up to the octave, I'd be moving up into the 2nd finger position, okay? So that's how this works. So that's the basic shapes and fingering positions, but then we come to the most interesting of the options in the shape of the complete positions. This expands on the 3 fingerings that I just covered, but this time we fill in all of the missing notes on the strings above and below. So as an example of how this works, let's look at our C major scale again with the root note at the 8th fret of the E string, and we'll use the 2nd finger pattern again. So we're going to work up C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So we've reached the C there at the 10th fret of the D string, but then we also have some notes on the G string. So if we keep going through the C major scale, we have D, E, F. So up there on the G string, we've got the 7th, 9th, and 10th frets. So that's all of the notes on the G string, and then if we come all the way back down again, once we get down to the C, we also have the B there at the 7th fret of the E string. Okay, so that's all of the notes of C major in that hand position. And I tend to practice these by playing from the root note up and back down, playing all of the notes in that position, but I always start and finish on the root note just so I can keep my bearings, you know, with where the tonic is. So to do that, what you can do is start at the root note there, so that's that 8th fret of the E string, work all the way up to the top, all the way up to that F there, then all the way back down, all the way down to that B, so we've gone all the way down as far as we can go, and then we return to the tonic, the C, okay? So all of that again. We can do exactly the same thing for the 1st finger and 4th finger patterns. So if we were to take the 1st finger C major, we can't move any further down, so this will be the lowest that we'll go, and we come up C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, then we fill in with the D at the 12th fret of the D string, then the E, F, and G up there on the G string, so 9th fret, 10th fret, 12th fret. Okay, so that's the complete C major position in there with the 1st finger on that C, and then if we take the 4th finger, so we can start there at the 8th fret of the E string again, we work up, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, so we've reached the C there at the 5th fret of the G string, then we can fill in with the D and the E above, so that's the 7th and 9th frets. All the way back down again, we reach the C at the 8th fret of the E string, and then we can fill in with the B and the A below, okay? And then return, okay? So we have. Okay, so that's all of the notes of C major in that hand position. If we apply these complete positions to root notes starting on the A string, we get another set of patterns. So if we were to take the C major scale again, 2nd finger, we can't go any higher on the G string, but when we come down, we can go below the C, B, A, G, F, and then back to the C. So that's all the notes of C major there, then up to the 1st finger, up to the D, all the way down to the G and back. Then for the 4th finger, we would actually probably start on the 3rd finger here for this one, so we can fill in below with the B, the open A string, the G, the F, and the open E string. Okay, so now I'll just work up through all of those positions of C major from the open string up to the highest fret. So we start with the 4th finger position there, so 2nd finger, 1st finger, then we move to the 4th finger on the E string, 2nd finger, 1st finger. Now, for the next hand position moving up, because we're just moving up one note at a time, we can't start at a root note on the A or the E string. So the lowest root note that we've got is actually on the D string. So this is a D string 1st finger position. And this is kind of a transitional position for getting to the repeat of all of those that we've just played. So I'm here at this C at the 10th fret of the D string, and I can come up, C, D, E, F, G, A, back down, and then back down through all of those notes below. So C, B, A, G, F, E, D. Okay? Okay, so if you were thinking of that in terms of the chord tones and stuff, you'd be seeing that as pretty much a 1st inversion position, but don't worry about that too much for now. So now we can just repeat all of the positions again that we had from the open string to the 12th fret. So we're in the 4th finger position on the A string, then the 2nd finger, then the 1st finger. Okay, and you just work your way up as high as your bass will go. So this method of seeing scales in positions is much more useful than just seeing those fretboard diagrams that cover every note on the fretboard all at once. You're never going to be looking at the fretboard in that way. Playing always takes place in positions, even if you're moving through them. Seeing the notes in each position as you shift gives you a much more ordered view of the notes, and you'll always be able to keep your bearings as you keep track of the position of the root note and all the surrounding scale degrees. So back to the app, we can select the C major scale, complete positions, and then choose the required fingering based on the starting string and the starting finger. So for an A string, first finger, we have this scale shape. If we hit play, you'll hear it play just as we did from root note to root note, covering all the notes from low to high and back. So that's an overview of the Scales for Bass app. The app was released yesterday and has already hit the #1 spot in the music app category on the App Store. It's only £2.99, or however much that translates to other currencies, and we'll soon be releasing versions for Android and all tablets. So go check it out, and I'll see you next week.